I put in a public records request to the retirement board. There was a court ruling last week that said in other counties, the counties have to release the names of each retiree and the amount of their pensions that they get, either monthly or annually. I want to do a crosstab on that and come up with the average salary per bargaining unit. Last night I ran a query. For several years I've been putting in public records requests to get the city controller's end of year payroll file. And one of my big issues, which I've been feeding to SEIU's bargaining team for several years, is that between 2003 and 2010, the city added something like 8,138 employees making over 90 grand a year, which is tacked on $1.47 billion to the city's payroll. That's not fringe benefits, that's not health care, that's just straight base pay, overtime pay, and miscellaneous or other pay. So I ran a query last night. It finally occurred to me to come up with the average salary per union. The MEA Fire Department Chiefs, which is a separate bargaining unit from the rank and file firefighters, average $261,000 a year in salary. The Teamsters Local 856 supervising nurses average $144,000 a year. And I know everybody says we can't live without nurses, but these nurses are special nurses and they don't do nursing. They do management. The Municipal Attorneys Association, $481 average salaries. Rank and file firefighters, $135,986,000. Police Officers Association, $126,502. The MEA, $120,412. You get the drift. For those 11,000 in total employees making over 90 grand, their average salary is $124,000, while those of us who earn less than 70 grand a year average more like 45,000. And in fact, the SEIU miscellaneous, not the staff and per diem nurses who do that bedside work, but the miscellaneous members of 1021 average 45,000. Increased pension contributions are not affordable to the vast majority of 1021 members, in part because many of them have not been de-skilled. They've been moved into part-time jobs. They've been moved into quarter-time jobs. The city's favorite trick is to take a 1.0 FTE and carve it up into several smaller jobs. And in fact, Mr. Adachi has banged away ever since last November with the Labor Council's tacit permission and the city controller's flawed data saying that San Francisco's 27,000 employees average $93,000 a year. That is ammunition in the private sector and the private sector voters' minds. It's upmost. They think we all make 93 grand. I wish I did, but I don't. And the reason the city controller comes up with that $93,000 crap is because they roll up all of the half-time, part-time, quarter-time employees into the magical 27,000 full-time equivalents. Full-time equivalents are not making 93 grand. The people who are Deputy Sheriff's Association, plumbers in Local 38, electrical workers in Local 6, municipal attorneys, MEA. It's not us. And what I want to do in fleshing out the last part of my flyer is to compare what our annual salaries are to what our average annual salaries are to what our average pensions are, to try to help educate the voters that we are the ones who can least afford either the pension increases or the health care increases that'll be coming as current employees paying into the retiree fund, even the retiree health care fund, even before we retire. And that it's the fixed income pensioners who retired at lower salaries before we started negotiating higher salaries, who cannot afford to give up that meager amount of a supplemental COLA. So as you're trying to educate your family members who live in town and who can vote, your neighbors, your coworkers, although you can't do that on the job, you have to do it outside of the building you work in or on Muni on your way home from work or at your local bar or bowling alley. Try to use some numbers and get them to understand what kind of a plight we are in. Those at the top of the food chain, the attorneys in the Municipal Attorneys Association, they can afford the pension increases proposed by the mayor or by Jeff Adachi. What's sad is that although Adachi has 6 separate categories or steps, 50 grand to 60 grand, 60 grand to 70 grand, going up to 99,999, that the pension increases will go up on a sliding scale by half a point for each $10,000 bracket. Mysteriously, Mr. Adachi exempted Mr. Muscat and Ms. Rhines, and they only have 3 categories. And it's not in $10,000 chunks. It's in $50,000 chunks, such that they only go up 0.5% when they go from 150 up to, and they cross that line of 150,000 and 1 penny. They only pay an additional 0.5%, all the way up to 200,000. So, although Adachi is trying to claim that his sliding scale is fair, it's not. We at the bottom get hit with 0.5% every 10 grand. They get hit 0.5% every 50 grand. And similarly, the blanket 4% that we would all pay between 50 grand and 100 grand under the mayor's consensus proposal, I think that, and I'll have to check my figures on this, or one of us should, of what the increase will be for those who make over 100 grand. Again, the disparity of hitting us with 4% that we can least afford, and then only hitting top management with another 1% or another 2%, or maybe only a 0.5% is grossly unfair. And I think those points may resonate with the voters. It's going to be a tough uphill battle trying to defeat both measures, because there will be no union support paying for any kind of meaningful campaign with the voters. It's going to have to be member-driven, neighbor to neighbor, coworker to coworker.